G'day, guys. Welcome to the Thunder from Down Under podcast. I'm your host, Graham Solomon. Glad you could be here to join us. And as always, hit the like button, hit the heart button, give our special guest a warm welcome. And remember to go to the Graham Solomon Thunder from Down Under YouTube channel, belt that subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you can be notified when the countdown happens, and you can be bang live in the Thunderdome with us. Today, I've got a special guest in. His name is John Ryan. I won't go. There's a few letters after his name, which means he's stood the test of time. He's done all the work. He's the founder of NLP Unlimited, and he's an NLP specialist, which is Neuro Linguistic Programming. He's a coach, trainer. He's done, I think, over 1,500 hours of training in the field. And what I'll do is I will introduce John. John, thank you for coming into the podcast. I'll get you to elaborate on that, on more of what you've done, and just welcome you. Thanks for coming in and spending some time with us.
Thank you so much, Graham. It's an honor to be here. I'm excited. I love the show, the guests you've had on, and honestly, the intro always gets me pumped up. I mean, such a great song, and it definitely reminds me every time I hear it now, going forward, the Thunder from Down Under. So thanks for that anchor, if you will.
Well, there's a bit of a backstory to that. I had a really rocking intro, and then I got flagged by YouTube. Now I didn't argue with it. I said fair enough. So I had someone just do me a temporary one, which is that one, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to get more rock and roll because it was pretty kick butt, the one, and I feel a bit naked without it, but you know that does the job. It still gets us introed. But anyway, John. Firstly, I just wanted to ask you about your training. Like, you got an MBA and PhD and all that sort of stuff. Do you want to just go into that about the education involved in all of that stuff?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Thanks so much for asking. And I try not to talk too much about myself because people don't really care about you unless they know how much you care, and that's such an important thing in life. So I'll share minimal, and you can always ask for if you want more information on that. How people get involved in personal growth and development is usually one of two categories. In fact, there's really three levels of life. We have inspiration. That's when things are going well, and we want to kick it up a notch. We know what we're doing, we are getting success, and want to say, how can we get there faster or enjoy it more on the path? We also have desperation. That's things aren't going well. That's usually when we have a nice kick in the pants and we're willing to do whatever we can to get out of that situation. And then with the middle one, which is probably the hardest enemy to combat, which is stagnation. That's when it's not that bad, could be better, but again, it's not that bad. So we get stuck in that place. Well, I wasn't in stagnation or inspiration. I was actually in more desperation and was in a bad place, came across NLP. And the first training I went to, I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I started reading everything could, like everyone does, same thing with real estate. And what can I learn? And I wanted to get certified, but I also wanted to make sure I had traditional education too. So I had a depth of knowledge, and that's where all the schooling came from and things like that. So I've been doing NLP since 1996. And the other degrees came along the way is just what else is there out there to make sure I have a well-rounded knowledge. 26 years now in the industry overall. And that's really where that came from.
Yeah, I just asked that question because, in real estate, someone may start with wholesaling, then they bring in some creative finance, and then they build their resume and they build their toolbox. So that's why I asked, because I thought it would be very similar that, you have got the NLP, but you've also got other stuff that you've done along the way. So I just sort of asked that question. And once again, you're very humble there, but we do like to get to know our guest. And I'll ask you if you could tell us a bit about your backstory, if you want to share anything with that, because it's good to, I know you don't want to spend too much time on yourself, and we'll get into the NLP, and we'll get into how you work with real estate people and the benefits and everything. But just a little bit about your backstory, who you are as a person, because I like to get people to know who you are.
Sure. I actually came, and I think I may have shared this one of our previous conversations around from upstate New York. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, currently, but my family actually came from the beer distribution industry. My grandfather, 6 months after Prohibition ended in I can know the number. I think 1933. Maybe someone can correct us on that exact date. But 6 months later, he joined a beer distribution ship, sweeping floors, worked his way up, got ownership, etc. It's now gone 3 generations, and after 60 years plus in the business, they just actually recently sold the business and exited that industry. And so what a great accomplishment to my dad, my grandfather, my brother, and all that. And so I always grew up thinking I was going to be involved in that space because
Yeah,
I been working, on trucks and empties and deliveries and things like that. But once I saw NLP, and the thing that really hooked me in, and this may be true for a lot of people in real estate as well, is when you start looking at the future and you start thinking about where you want to be, and is this current path going to get me where I want to be? Well, for some of us, we're at a job, we're at a job, and we look and I want some independence. I want some passive income. I want to build some wealth and create a legacy for myself and my family. And we realize that real estate is an incredible vehicle for doing that. Well, for me, it was the question that I heard at my first training, which was, hey, 5 years from now is going to arrive. The question is, where are you going to be when that shows up? And the time to plan for it is now. And so I looked up on stage, I saw the trainer, and I had this voice in my head said, that's where I want to be. And that's where everything that's come since then has been in service of how can I show up and get the knowledge, skills, and abilities to help people be the best at what they do, be their best version of themselves,
yeah,
regardless of comparison to others. And
yeah,
that's really
yeah. No, that's a cool story. I said to you that we've made you a token Aussie in the Thunder from Down Under because you're from the beer industry, and I think the views just went up by 30. I think 30 Aussies just woke up and said, "Did I hear beer?" So you're already a favourite on the show with the Australian viewers that watch. But
I'm
no, that's a
honored.
great backstory, and I mean, that 3 generations, that's amazing, and you would have seen the generations. That's great, but like you said, everything has to come to an end, and the business got sold, and you've gone off in a different direction, and with the NLP. So I guess the question is for anyone that's new, that's watching and hasn't heard about NLP, what is NLP, and I guess a bit of an overview, because they're thinking, what's this NLP thing? So can you explain that? Just an overview of what it is, which will be a hard job because I know it's pretty intense, but I'm sure you've got it covered.
Well, I think there's two levels of NLP. There's like the theoretical, the scientific way of looking at it. It sounds more like psychology. And then there's more the street level, which is I like to focus on, is like how do we really apply this in the minimum amount of time, minimal effort? Because most people, they don't want to study NLP for 20 years like I did. They want to, how can I get the tools and use it in my life to improve my communication, my mindset, my behavior, so I can be more consistent in my career, in my
Yeah,
job, in investing and talking to other people and things like that. So NLP, as you defined it earlier, or at least explain what the terms are, which usually doesn't help, Graham. When you tell people it's neuro linguistic programming, that does not help people get a clear idea of what it's all about. NLP really is how to use the language of the mind to help create better, consistent results.
yeah,
That's it.
that's
So
it. Yeah,
in terms of real estate and in business and other industries, where NLP comes in and why it's so effective in those different areas is there's two levels for our success. There's the mechanics. That's the investing part. That's understanding real estate. That's understanding valuation. That's understanding market trends and lending and return on investment and things like that. But then there's the mindset. So many of us get into real estate. Some people I worked with get into real estate or investing in businesses or different things, they know what to do, but they're not pulling the trigger. Well, that's where NLP goes in. So there's the level of communication, there's a level of mindset, and then there's a level of change. The change is the more scientific. Most real estate professionals, investors, brokers, agents don't really care about creating change as much as changing their own thinking, feeling, and behaving. And that's where I think is the gold in NLP is how do we get the street level techniques so we can improve our mindset, communication, and have consistency of behavior. We do that, then we're on the right track.
yeah. So very simple how you explained it. It's for a layman like myself, a tradesman that's you know thinking, oh, what is this? You've explained it real well. It's just basically getting the mind in sync, isn't it, and getting it working for you, not against you. I don't know. That's the tradie definition, I guess. Is yeah, trying to get the mind working and everything functioning like a smooth motor in a motor car. So the right
Well,
oil,
that's
everything.
That's the
Yeah,
idea. I love the motor car analogy is a really good way to do it. If you don't mind, one of the things that I think helps people, because there's the things that we want to have in life, right? We want to have a certain number of doors under management. We want to have a certain number of return and wealth and passive income. Well, in order for us to have that, we need to do certain things. Well, we can focus on the doing, and that's where traditional coaching without NLP focuses on is, okay, well, what's your action? Well, how many phone calls are you going to make? And what's your close ratio? But to make it more consistent and organic and with the alignment that you mentioned, it's so much easier. Just go back. Let's just find out, hey, who does Graham have to be to naturally be the person and wake up with the energy that I know you do to consistently show up? Because that's when the results happen, is when you program yourself and you have that alignment versus trying to white knuckle it to the
yeah,
end of the end zone. And that doesn't really work out long
yeah.
term.
That's brilliant. You've explained it brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. Because you know, if you're running at full potential, if you've got that energy, and if you bounce out of bed, you're halfway there, aren't you? So, and like you said, then you know, a lot of people, like you said, get into most businesses and want to know. All right, forget all that mindset stuff. What about the tools? I want to know how to do this. I want to know. And everybody that I think is an educator and a coach always starts with mindset. And people, you can just see people in the crowd, and they just don't get that. That's what's going to give you that energy and drive to be able to put the tools into place. So I'm sure the people that are successful get it, and they focus on their mindset and they focus on their habits. But people that are probably chasing their tail a little bit actually go, yeah, look, I know all the tools, what's going on, and that's exactly where you come into it, and it's to realign and to get them back in the fast lane, I guess, in the fast lane. So more specifically, like you work with real estate people, what are the benefits for real estate people, and what can they get out of NLP, and how does it affect them in real estate? What's the real estate specific stuff? With the, and what do you recognize with people that you work with from real estate?
One of the patterns, because there's different ways to get benefit of NLP. You could go and get a training, and we certainly do that at NLP Unlimited. We offer trainings. We have the first ever NLP real estate practitioner training, which is awesome, geared just towards real estate professionals, investors, agents, brokers, etc. Or you can work with a coach
Yeah,
and or read a book, or something like that, or watch a YouTube video and get those types of things. The things that NLP helps with is, one, how do we connect with people? Because real estate is a people business. So how do we connect with not just the people that we automatically would connect with, but even the more, I don't know, Graham, have you ever come across quote unquote difficult personalities, perhaps?
yeah, people that have threatened violence and stuff like that. Yeah,
Oh, wow. Okay. I would definitely put that in the category of difficult
that's
and or
difficult.
different difficult. We can, it's a, to each their own and their perspective on that one.
Yeah,
Well, how do we respond to that if we're in a deal or a potential deal, and how do you bring that energy down to be productive rather than obviously an aggressive type of tone that's there?
yeah,
So it's connection with others, it's communication. How do you maintain rapport? How do you establish rapport, maintain rapport, even when we're having negotiation differences, perhaps, and how things are going to go to minimize that conflict? And then there's the other thing about the behaviors. So let's assume that we have all the tools, because there's plenty of tools out there, and incredible trainings and programs out there about how to do different types of investing in real estate, and depending what avenue you're going down. But then we have it all. And then we sit there and say, yeah, but what if it doesn't work out? What if I try it and it doesn't work out? And then all of a sudden that means that I'm a failure. And everyone who told me that I'm not going to be successful, then I'm proving them right. It's just better if I don't do it. And this is internal dialogue that people don't always share with other people, but they share it with me because that's who I talked with.
yeah,
And so they procrastinate, or they know what to do, and they get really, maybe it's not procrastination in the traditional sense where you're not doing anything, but you do other things that are not revenue generating, that are not productive, that we think they're good. You know what? Let me work on my real estate. Let me develop my social media presence. That's what I really need to do to get some deals going. Because once they see that, then people will understand that I'm the real deal.
yeah,
We've all done different forms of procrastination, and really it's fear in disguise.
yeah.
So let's identify that fear. What is the intention of that? Let's work through that, release that, and then get into action, and then support you on the way.
Yeah, the example I gave was extreme. But that was more of a cold calling, early days doing cold calling myself. You get a lot of abuse, and you do with text blasting that you just it is very negative, and a lot of people suggest that you have someone do that, and you shield yourself from that, especially as a business owner, because it's very hard to keep a positive mindset when you're just having 500 abusive things. I mean, there might be a couple of good ones in there, but once again, there's certain people that are good at it, and it's water off a duck's back. So that was an extreme example. So I probably should have gone with a less extreme one, but no, that explains it. That explains it really well. And that how long does it take? Like you said before, people don't want to do what you've done and spend years learning it. So how long does it take to learn it or get the benefits from it for someone that comes and sees you and goes, John, I want a fast track. I've seen Anthony Robbins and he's like bang bang. People are obviously going to want the silver bullet, aren't they? So how long roughly does it take to see the benefits coming through in the person's, I guess, persona, and you'd notice the change, and then directly into their business?
Well, it's funny you bring up like motivational speakers, and Tony would be the first to say that he's not a motivational speaker, right? Because it's not just short term and things like that. But we've all been to events where we get pumped up and excited, and that feels really good in the moment, but it doesn't really last because we go home and no one else is as excited as we are. And
Yeah,
so we can't necessarily have that infectious experience that we can replicate from that motivational seminar. So where I think NLP comes into play is it actually gives you tools to change not only just your physiology, which is what we do when we're jumping up and down and dancing and things like that, but your mindset in terms of what you think and what you say to yourself. Because thinking really is, it's what we say to ourselves in terms of questions and statements, and also the pictures that we have in our mind. So to
yeah,
that extent, a couple things, Graham. One, you already do NLP. NLP, another way to look at it, in addition to the language of the mind, is the study of success. So it studies people who are successful in specific areas and reverse engineers it into a recipe. So
mm,
you set goals, right? You know how to connect with other people, you know how to handle objections. NLP does the same thing. So you're doing NLP. Everyone who's watching this, listening to this, has also done NLP. You might not have just called it that. So we
yeah,
have some terminology that gives us a common language that we can use and get clear on solving problems. But as a real estate investor or agent or broker, your goal isn't to do what I do. Your goal is to just take it and run with it. So if we change your internal dialogue, we help you ask a better question. If we change the way you look at things, the benefit is instantaneous. So
yeah.
when I'm about to do a cold call, I don't know if, and you've done a lot of cold calling, I think in person, sounds like on the phone, social media, like we all do these days. Back when you first started out, how was your internal representation? Like what kind of pictures did you have in your mind, if you don't mind me asking? Do you remember those days?
Well, I'm probably a bit different because we don't have that over here in Australia. So I thought everyone would be happy to talk to me, and I'm like, "G'day, mate. How you going?" Like I was completely delusional, which probably helped me. And then I go, "Why don't these Americans answer their phone? Don't they like a good chat?" Like it was just voicemail, voice. So I'm leaving messages. Go, "Oh, they'll ring me back." Yet nothing. I'm like, "That's a bit strange." Oh, it must be on holiday. So it took, and then the reality of it sort of hit after a while, and I soon realised once I started doing some volume that I got a cold caller, a trained cold caller, and then I just get the leads. And the second phone call was always the best because then it's a lot warmer conversation. It's a even though there's objections and there's all that sort of stuff, there's not the abuse and all that sort of stuff. And then obviously text blasting and cold calling just got saturated because the market was so hot. So I think people got a bit sick of it. So I sort of got out of it as I was starting to get a bit of abuse and everything. But I was pretty naive at the start. I just thought everyone would be happy to talk to me because we don't have people calling you 10 times a day over here and texting you and filling your letterbox. This doesn't happen. So I thought, this would be great. I'll get to, wow, this is exciting. So I was pretty excited about it, and I had some great conversations with people. I probably talked a bit long, but I just thought, how great's this? So I had a different experience, but I'm sure people in the States would have probably a different perspective when they started. Yeah,
Well, I think I had I don't know if we call it a naive picture of what it's supposed to be like as well. And in fact, I heard really bad advice. Someone said, if you're really good at cold calling, you should be able to open up the phone book and sell anyone on your product. And I did. I pulled out the phone book and I started calling, and people were not happy to hear my voice. This was back in the early 2000s. I think I asked someone, if you could have anything right now, what would it be? And they said, for people to stop calling me. And I was
Bang.
like,
Yeah.
all right, I hung up and I laughed because it was awesome, but I also felt terrified inside. You know what I mean? I
Oh,
started getting that anxiety, because in our mind, if I'm, we have two choices, right? We're about to make a call, whether it's a first call, second call, either way. If your picture is a positive picture of what the outcome is going to be, and you're going to show up and be of service and find a win-win, then you're going to feel differently than if you think the other person at the other end of the line is going to hang up on you, is going to yell at you, they're never going to call back, and you have these beliefs inside. So people are really good, have good pictures, and they have good mantras and self-talk inside. People who feel anxiety, they tend not to think positive things before they make that phone call, and they white knuckle it. They try to power through and hope that if you smile and dial enough that you'll change that feeling. For some people it switches, and for others it doesn't. And that's why NLP can help us to switch and hopefully get them into a positive trajectory if that's their calling.
yeah, yeah, that's right. And I guess some people, does it go also into your character and your makeup? Like some people just aren't wired for that, are they? Because I know some people that you could throw a brick at them, you could throw abuse at them, and that doesn't they don't even care. They're real. You watch them, and I follow a guy in particular. He does live ones on his channel, and I'm just like, just doesn't care. And I'm just like, it's made of steel. This guy, it's like Teflon. Everything just slides off him, and I'm just like, maybe there's some people that are probably a bit more, like you said, haven't got those hang-ups internally, that rejection hang-up or something. But I still think that everyone should practice. I mean, what I did also was to start calling for sale. If I got a bit down with it, I'd call for sale by owners because they're already selling their house, so they want people to call them. And just practice, do 5 or so of those as a warm up. And that was something that I got off this guy on his channel. He said, just get, and rather than sitting there going, oh, I'm scared of the phone, you have some good conversations and just, he had a couple of little tips like that. But yeah, I know a lot of people just refuse to do it because it's just too confronting for them. It's too confronting.
So what would be the difference then for someone who's going to be willing to overcome that hump and get used to it? I think it comes down to desire.
Yeah,
Do you want to do it or not? If it's in your heart and you want to get good at it, well, if you're a natural, if you're made of steel already, then that's not a problem for you. But if if you're uncomfortable, but you kind of want to, if there's a desire there, I think you can do it with the right strategy, practice, training, etc., plus mindset.
yeah,
But if you have no desire to do it, it's going to be really hard to have the consistency, because the moment you hit that resistance, you're going to falter and you're going to
yeah,
go back to that safety, because
yeah,
it feels uncomfortable. It feels threatening when
yeah,
you're not in the right the right mindset.
yeah, yeah. That's right. And traditionally, people early days just went back to direct mail and had some inbound calls, which are easier because people are reaching out to you. So there is other ways to do it. There's nothing in the real estate space beats talking to people on the phone, and if you're a good communicator. So yeah, if you push through it, you get the results. And a lot of the people I know that pushed through it and did 1,000 hours of calling are successful and they close deals. And it helps when you get to the negotiation part because you're already really good at that, I guess, confronting stage. So when you get to the part where it's negotiation, it's a lot more comfortable. Then there's no abuse in that. So yeah, no, that's a great point. That if you really want it, sometimes you have to do the work and grow the mental muscle. So I guess that's where
Can you
you come into it.
imagine? Sorry, go ahead.
No,
Please
I was
forgive
going
me.
to say that's where you come into it because once again, uh, you know deep down what the fears are, how to work with those fears, and how to because it's all that's where it's all psychology, isn't it? It's all um, in the mind. So yeah, no, that's amazing. And have you had success with that? Have you had success with, in particular, people that struggle on the phone or with a confrontation on the phone?
Absolutely. People are stressed about communicating with people all over the place, regardless. And strangers are cold calling is for many considered the worst, right underneath probably doing presentations.
Yep.
So with NLP, we do presentation training, we have trainer training program, but really the mechanics of the cold call is not too bad. And if you shift the mindset, here's the simplest thing I found that really what works for people is when you shift it from, let's not call it cold calling, you're reaching out to see if you can be of service.
Yep.
That's it. If you can really, not just intellectually, but viscerally, physically start to feel, I'm just showing up to see who out there needs help, because there are people who, for sale by owners, for example, who they have a situation, they need to sell it, and they're afraid that they're not going to get the price that they need to get out of their mortgage, or the timing might be an issue there as well. If you can show up and provide a solution that helps them fit their needs, you're providing a valuable service, and you can also benefit from that as well. So it's a win-win. You're not going to convince someone to sell their home if they're not ready for it.
Actually, you nailed it. I was just about to ask you when you said about the two fears is, I guess, presentation and public speaking in that sense, and cold calling. I was going to say, if people have you noticed that if people have got belief that they just do it because they believe in what they do, is if someone hasn't got the belief that they struggle to get up in front of people, or they struggle to, I guess, like that imposter syndrome. But if someone's got belief, even if they're not polished, even if they're not trained, that they'll get up and push themselves because it's coming from the heart. Have you noticed that with people?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Belief and passion and knowing your why and coming at it from the right energy, the right mindset is way more important than being polished.
Yeah,
I'm not like, I've done, close to 2000 days of presenting in the last 15 years. I'm not a perfect speaker. I make up words all the time. I mix up my words, but I don't think people care because the idea comes across. So if I call someone, even if my script isn't right, if my heart's in the right place, my mindset's in the right place, they'll get where I'm coming from way better than someone who's got it totally dialed in and memorized and sounds like they've done it 1,000 times and doesn't have the
yeah,
heart in it.
yeah. And yeah, that's like with what you were just saying, the example that you gave. Yeah, I think people can feel it, can't they? They can feel it. They can they can hear it, hear the feeling. I guess that's a weird. I had a guy in the early days. One of the things with cold calling and all the rest of it is you're trying to find a motivated seller, and he goes, when you hear a motivated seller, you can um, you can smell it, you can hear it, you know they're motivated. So then from that point on, you'll know not to when someone's not motivated, and that's part of the trick is to not waste time on people. Like you said, you can't convince someone to sell something or whatever when they're not interested. They're like, why are you ringing me up? I've been in this house for 35 years. You don't do a sales job on them. You probably just ask them a few things, put them on a follow up, and move on. So he said you can smell it in the air when there's a motivated seller. So I guess the intention's got to be there at the start, and like the example you gave before is a really good one of just coming from a heart place, and you do it because you know that that's a part of it. You might mess your words up, you might struggle a little bit, but people know that you're authentic. So that's something that I think you've got to work on yourself first, and belief in yourself, and then that'll come through. Now, the next question I was going to ask was, what system, like, how do you find out what's holding someone back? For instance, say you're working with a real estate person, how do you sort of get to the point where you go, oh, I think I know what's holding them back? Is it obvious to you, or does it take a while to drill down?
I don't think it takes too long usually. I think usually people have a general understanding. It's once you create a space, you can look inside and help them identify where the blocks are. In many ways, it's like sales, right? It's like, what do you want? Where are you now? What's preventing you from getting what you want? Well, okay. Do you know how to call? Do you know of a script? Yeah, I got scripts. Okay, cool. Do you know how to do a deal? Yeah, I know how to do a deal. Do you have access to money? Yeah, I got access to money. What's holding you back? Well, every time I go to pick up the phone, I find something else to do. Okay, cool. What is it that comes up right before you pick up the phone? I think about how they're going to yell at me, and okay, cool. Do you want to fix that, or do you want to get someone else to do the calling for you and you take the second call, right? So it really comes simple, but we're in our baggage. We're stuck. It's hard for us to see. I have a coach. I've had a coach the last 15 years. I always will have a coach because I can't see my blind spots any more than anyone else can see their own. So from the outside, it's easy for me to ask in a couple questions to get to the root, that core pattern we talk about in NLP, And then, okay, what else is going on? Where else are we dropping the ball or slowing ourselves down? And then we come up with like, here's the structure. And then we just work through it, clean it up with the techniques. That's the more advanced stuff. Real estate agents, brokers, investors, they don't care about that stuff. They just want the magic to happen so they can get out there and do the thing they want to do. So that's where the difference is. You don't have to learn how to do the thing to experience the benefit of the thing.
Yeah. So people come in with a silver bullet. You ask them, and they sort of slow down for a minute, and then is it like Dr. Phil? They just, once they start, they just pour it out to you and they tell you their life story and all that. Do you cop that very much?
It can be. I will say I had the record a couple weeks ago. I had the privilege of talking to someone, and in 10 minutes we got to exactly what the problem was. And she's like, I'm just ready to start if you are. And so we just started coaching right there. Normally, you spend the 45 minutes to an hour, get to know the person, but we had instant connection. She totally opened up and we were ready to go. And it was awesome.
Yeah. It's sometimes it's not just your knowledge, and it's the confidence and support that you bring as well, isn't it? Because some people, I don't know. It's like anything. If you're young, like I used to coach a lot of kids in football and that, and once they're confident, once you can get them confident, they just shine. And I think we're all the same. We're like, even as grown adults, as 50-year-olds, as 20-year-olds, once we feel confident, we just need, like you said, a coach or somebody that instills that confidence, has the skill set, and says, like in sport, you kick this way, you kick, and just instills that you're good enough to do this. And like you said, works with, look, I've identified this as this, let's work on this. And once the confidence rises, it's amazing. And that's, I mean, even just talking to you, I feel confident. Like we've had some chats before this podcast, and just how you put things so simply in that, because obviously you're trained and you could do it in your sleep. Just being with someone like that makes you more confident. So I guess I've spoke to a lot of people on this podcast that are highly successful, and they said they will continue to have coaches until the day they die. And that's something that they swear by, because like you said, you can look at and analyze everyone else's life and say, oh, he needs to do that. That guy, he's lacking that. But you just can't. It's very hard to do it. I find it impossible to do it on yourself, to put the mirror on yourself and have a look at what's going on. So, yeah, I just think you need to find somebody like yourself that's just got that confidence, got the training, and has the passion. And that's what you said. I mean, your why would be to help people empower themselves and bring the best out in them. So that's probably why you're so happy and calm. That you might have your challenges in your job, but you're actually helping and serving people. And that's what you said about the cold caller. You're not a cold caller. You're actually out there trying to help people solve a problem, create an opportunity, and just reframing it into another way of thinking is half the battle. And that's what you do, is you empower people to reframe things and learn how to do that as a system. So no, it's amazing. I think it's great. And what are the most common blocks to success? What do you see are the most common blocks that just come up time and time again?
Belief in self.
Yep.
Really what you said a moment ago about when you instilling confidence in the young kids, learn them to play football, and that they're getting, a sense of the competence might be there, but the confidence isn't there. And those two together have to, it's a multiplier effect, right? If we know what to do, but we don't feel good about it, that's not going to work. If we feel confident, but we don't have any competence, well, then we're going to be overconfident and we're going to have mistakes and lose a lot of money and impact a lot of people negatively and things like that. So we need both. Something you said that really kind of inspired me a moment ago. One of the greatest takeaways I think I usually encounter when we talk to people about their belief in self, if that's really, even though when you look at kids, and I know you have children and they're growing older, as all our children are, and even if you don't have kids, you look at a 2-year-old, that child does not have a confidence issue. No. Why? Because they don't compare themselves to other people. They don't tally up the mistakes they've made in the past and say, oh, I fell down 5 times the last couple of years. Maybe the whole walking thing isn't for me. No, they just keep on getting up and they try until they get the result. They don't compare themselves to how fast they're going to be when they're older and say, man, I should be there now. They just focus on their day, right? They're right, like laser focus on the moment. So in a way, when we get people to let go of the limiting beliefs and the garbage that society, school, business, people have put upon us, in a way, it's almost like remembering the truth that we
Yep.
already have inside. So I don't have to teach people how to be confident, or even for kids as a coach, a football coach. Yeah, you got to encourage and support, and that helps to lock that in. But as adults, it's already in there. So we just got to remember the truth of who we are and come from that place that's heart-centered. And I hope it doesn't come across cheesy, but when you show up in service of others, like Zig Ziglar used to say, you can have anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. If you come from that place, you'll never be rejected again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've all experienced that phenomena, like you said, and that's what you said before about that energy, like when getting up on stage and you don't publicly speak, but you're that passionate, you just get up there and you can't even remember what you said. I think we've all, and I'm not talking just about public speaking, but just in life where you're just in the zone, you're in the zone, but then you fall off, and I think it's when you have expectations put on you, and you have and then you start overthinking things. If you can come from a passionate, purpose orientated place, I think everyone in some area of their life has felt that, and that's what you said. Kids are like in that state pretty much all the time. Like, let's go, I'll climb that, and then the parents go, don't, you'll poke your eye out, you'll fall out and that conditioning over a period of time takes its toll. So you're 100% right. You're just relearning or trying to take away all that stuff and get back to that state where you're in the here and now, and you're prepared to take a risk. You're prepared to risk living, I guess. So yeah, it's amazing. And you said earlier that it's great. You get in a room full of people like that, and you're all pumped up, and you're bouncing off the walls, and you feel that. It's the real truth is long term, and how to instill it long term, and that would be what you teach is to, I guess habits is another thing too. Success habits is another thing you'd probably teach, that you've got to make that a part of your being. It can't just be something that you like going to the gym. I'll work out one day and I'll have muscles for the rest of my life. It doesn't work like that, does it? Um, it's
No, love that
consistency.
analogy.
Yeah, it's consistency, and you've got to you know pull the weeds out, and the weeds are going to keep growing. But if you want to have a nice garden, you've just got to keep working on it every day. So I guess that's where you come in, because like I noticed when you were talking at the start, you were very, you'd have systems and everything. Like like you said, you would be passionate, what you'd feel those emotions, but you're realistic. You've got to put those things into practice to continue that feeling. Like, you can't be up all the time, and when you're not up, you've got to have things in place. I guess like a safety net, that you don't just fall off the horse or off the bike, wouldn't you?
Well, that's where I think coaching, masterminds, support systems in place like that are really helpful, because left to our own devices, we drift and we can fall down and we don't get reminded. So of course we're going to fall off the horse at some point in time, because we're going to get hit. That's, if we're not getting hits, we're not doing anything. So when we're doing stuff, we're going to get obstacles coming at us. And when we get knocked down or knocked over or pushed back from those obstacles, the question is, how quickly can we get back on the path? That's another obstacle that people have, is they get knocked off the path and then they make it mean something. They say, oh, that means I'm not good at cold calling. That means I'm not good at investing. No, how does anyone get good? You mentioned it earlier. You do something for 1,000 hours, you're going to get good.
Mm.
I know Malcolm Gladwell promoted the idea of the 10,000 hour rule, but that was the best of the best of the best in the world. To be an expert, 1,000 hours puts you at the top of the heap right there, because most people do not make it past that 1,000 hours. So how do you do it? You make a lot of mistakes. You try to minimize those mistakes by learning from the past, and you gotta. It's kind of a cheesy example. I don't know if you have in bowling. I don't know the different name. Yeah, okay,
Ten pin
in
bowling.
Australia.
10-pin
Yeah,
bowling.
well,
Yeah, bowling.
yeah,
Yeah.
10-pin bowling. Do you ever see the bumpers, like for kids?
No, no. Oh, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Sorry. Yeah, no, I have.
yeah.
Yes, I have. It's been
When
a
I was
while.
younger, they had like
Yeah,
inflatable bumpers, but now they have like I guess ingrained or installed inside the floor. They can pull them out, and it keeps the ball on the alleyway, so it doesn't go into the gutter.
yep,
Right? We almost need mental beliefs. And that's one of the things that a good NLP coach will help you do, is to help you identify what are the beliefs that are holding you back, and install empowering beliefs that no matter what comes in, you can immediately, independently on your own, reframe it into something that's actually productive. So
yeah,
what's the lesson? Because every struggle that you and I have probably been through, and the listeners and watchers as well, if you look back in the moment, you didn't want it. You wouldn't wish it on other people, but you got something. There's a gift from there. And once you find that gift, you never have to repeat that mistake again. And we got to find that lesson as quickly as we possibly can. Those are the bumpers that keep us learning and keep us on the straight and narrow to knock down the pins instead of getting stuck in the gutter.
Yeah, yeah. And I just mentioned success habits. Do you encourage morning routines and success? Is that something that you're big on, or
I'm pro and also agnostic in that sense.
yeah,
Like I
yeah,
think if that's what you want to do, and there's a lot of people say you got to have success habits, and I love The Morning Miracle. It's a great book to check out. And in the end, it's more important of what you don't do sometimes rather than what you do, right? So
yeah,
what are you saying no to make sure you're getting dialed in? There's also a technique in NLP called anchoring, which is based on Pavlovian conditioning. As a speaker, I had to travel and do a lot of speaking around the country, United States, internationally. And I met a lot of other speakers as well. And some of them have routines that take them 30, 45 minutes, sometimes even an hour to get ready to go on stage. Well, that's a lot of time,
mm,
So what if instead you could get a trigger, a button that you could push to get you instantaneously in that flow state, like you said, where after you're done, you don't even know what you said because it was coming through you in such a way that you're so absorbed in the moment. The same thing happens with cold calling. The same thing happens with leading a team. When you're absorbed in the moment, that's it. So whatever you need to do in the morning to get into that space, to be empathetic, focus on your goals, what can I do, proactiveness, being laser focused, saying no to all the other distractions out there, then do it. Whether it's a morning routine or using an anchor, a trigger to help you get in state,
yeah,
whatever works for you.
yeah. That's right. What works for you is the magic bullet, isn't it? What works for someone else doesn't always work for you. And I know a lot of people that are night people, so they'd rather end their night with some contemplation rather than they're just wired differently. So that's a great point. That we're all different, and you've just got to find what works for you. And once again, that's where working with someone that knows this and has the training will identify that. You won't be able to probably identify it in yourself. You go, oh, that guy's a multi-zillionaire because he gets up at 3 in the morning. And I've actually read somewhere that people are like, why the hell would I get up at 4 in the morning? It's not their thing. They would rather get up at 7 and work a bit later. So yeah, and that goes back to what you said before about you need someone that can see it from a different perspective every now and then when you're dealing with this particular stuff with blockages and things that aren't working for you. So yeah, awesome. I'll just ask you. I didn't realize the time where we're flying. Where I wanted to ask you the three energies and how to harness them. Do you want to tell us about that?
Sure, I'd love to. I'd love to. Just to tack on to the note you said about are you a morning person, afternoon, evening, a really simple thing that you can do to find your peak productivity is just kind of take a piece of paper, draw a line, right? Left to right, morning, noon, afternoon, evening, and draw just a map, like a mountain range, if you will, of like what it looks like. Where's your energy like? And then am I putting the most important tasks in the high energy periods or am I putting them in the low energy periods? Because sometimes we feel like we're not doing what we should be doing because we have our day mapped out the wrong way. If you're a
Mm,
morning person, put the hardest thing in the morning so you have the most energy there. And then the thing that you're naturally good at, your natural talents, put that in the space where your energy is a little bit low because if you're a people person, then put your meetings in the afternoon and put the spreadsheets in the morning or switch it
yeah,
around if it's the other way around. So customize it based on where you're at. With that in mind, there are three energies also that I think can really be helpful to get aware of, like where your strength is. And the first one is a creation energy. And for people who are really good at creating things, they're really good at starting things. So the three energies are this. So it's creation, it's maintenance, and then it's completion. And then it cycles over again. So when you build a home, you are creating it. You have the plans, you build it up, and all of a sudden, the moment you put in that last nail, that last bolt, the last shingle, it's starting to settle, right? The concrete's settling, the joints are settling, it's starting to deteriorate. So we got to maintain it and keep it in good shape for as long as we can before we pass it on to someone else. But at some point, 50 years from now, who knows? Someone's going to come along and say, you know what? It's not worth maintaining it. We should tear it down and build up something new. And that completion energy comes in and that cycles back over. So how it relates to us on a more daily basis is the creation is more of a starting energy. The maintaining is a keeping it going energy, and the completion is a finishing energy. So you want to be clear on what is your strength. So I'll just ask you to kind of role model for everyone else. Graham, what are you best at? Are you best at getting things started? Are you best at keeping things going? Or are you best at like driving the last nail in to make sure you can finish a project?
Probably the first one, getting things started, ideas person, creative. Let's do this. And then I get a bit bored with it. I want to move on. So can someone else do that? And yeah. So I've identified that. Yeah, definitely the creative ideas person and getting things started. So
And what is the biggest struggle for you? Is it the maintaining, keeping things going, or finishing?
um,
If there's a struggle at all, of course.
yeah, look, I guess probably the middle section. A bit of boredom kicks in. It might be a bit of I forget the terminology, but shiny shiny
Shiny
syndrome,
object
shiny
syndrome.
object syndrome. I sort of, what's that over there? That's just the way I'm wired, and I think my personality was I should be in marketing, just come up with great ideas and then move on to the next great idea. So, I probably the middle part. But then once I push myself through the middle part, I being a little bit of a perfectionist, I've got to finish things properly. And the trade that I was in was a finishing trade, and it had to be spot on. So probably got a bit sort of bored during the middle of the project. Love the start, love the
Mm-hmm.
excitement, everything, and then the end. So the middle part was probably where I struggled, I guess.
Nice. So if we were to map it out, it'd be like high on the start, lower in the maintaining, and then higher on the finishing thing. Well,
Yeah.
obviously, and you've already identified that's the potential where things can fall apart, right? Maintaining books, maintaining marketing efforts, and things. Once you want to get it going, you're a visionary, right? You
Mm.
can bring the vision in, but you want someone else to come in and fulfill it and keep it going once that's going. So the two ways we can compensate for that is either we develop the skill, but if we don't have the desire, we already established that that's not going to happen. Or get someone who their strength is that maintenance and allow them to do it. And that's a win-win. And your energy can stay in your zone of genius. Their energy can stay in their zone of genius as well. So if you're a strong finisher, you might need to have someone get things started for you.
Mm. Yeah,
I
exactly.
that's how I can get things started, but it's much easier for my wife to do it. So
Mm.
she'll start something, but I have to finish things. If I start watching a movie, I got to finish it. I got to find out what that's like, or read a
Yeah,
book, or
yeah.
write a book for that matter. But as long as it gets started, I will then see it through. And so we got to find our strengths and then compensate either by developing ourselves or bringing someone else to help
Or
us.
getting someone in, yeah, and that's where the team synergy works too, isn't it? Because some people, like I said, in that middle part for me, or the middle or start for you, you bring someone in there that's just absolutely nails it there. You don't go down in a dip. You sort of flatline, don't you? It never drops. So, I mean, that's where successful people that build teams obviously understand this, and this is why I understand this isn't taught 101 in schools. All this sort of stuff. I mean, if you could identify this, if I know for myself, if I could have identified these things as a young person, you would have been a lot more successful. You went through your 20s and 30s just like a bull in a china shop, just not knowing what you were doing. So it's just amazing once, like talking to someone like yourself, once you actually start understanding how all this works. And you said before about when you've got the most energy, like if you're a morning person, and I think the term that the layman's term is swallow, is it eat the frog or swallow the frog in the morning or whatever? Do the
Eat the
hard thing
frog.
first,
Yeah.
eat the frog.
Mm-hmm.
And another analogy, I'll give you this analogy, you use an Aussie one. You're saying about surrounding yourself with like-minded people, and you've got to keep connected. You take a coal out of a nice campfire, you take a coal and put it 2 meters away from the fire, it's going to go out. It'll go out because it's away from the source. You bring it back in once it's gone out, put it back in, and it'll ignite again. So that's one that keeps me thinking of that. With being connected, you've got to be connected with like-minded people, and people that can, like yourself, or people that are in your industry that are further down the track, that can just keep teaching you and educating you, because you just don't know what you don't know. Sometimes you just don't know it even exists. So I mean,
I
amazing.
love it, Graham. Thank
I
you.
could go for about 3 hours talking to you about this stuff. It's just, like I said, you just don't know what you don't know, and when you get someone that comes in that understands this and can, it's clarity. It's the penny. I call it the penny drop. you have penny drop moments where things just you can feel it dropping in your brain. You're like, would have been handy to know 20 years ago. I've banged my head against the wall for 20 years, and John's just come in and told me that. I feel like I need to send you wire you some money. I feel like I've had a session here because it's been amazing. But no, I really appreciate it. And John, how do people reach out to you? What's the best way to reach out to you? Because I'm sure people that watch this will say, "Look, I need to work with someone like John," and I'm thereabouts. I know I'm about to scale. I know I'm about to peak, but I've been a bit stuck. How do they reach out to you and connect with you?
Well, Graham, thank you so much for having me on the Thunder from Down Under show. I really had a blast talking and going over the topics we went over to. A couple ways to do it. One simple way, if they're on Facebook or want to join Facebook or in that capacity, we do weekly live free trainings every Monday night on the East Coast, 7 p.m. And then go to impactingomegroup.com. And that'll take them right there to the website or search for it. You can also check us out. We actually have a special gift we love to give to your listeners, if that's okay as well.
Yeah,
On closing, definitely. It's for real estate professionals. I think you'll enjoy it. And there's a QR code for it. If I can get that to come up, and I cannot get that to come up. So I'll give you the website to go to, which is nlpunlimited.com/thunder, just for you. So nlpunlimited.com/thunder, and that will take you right to a special gift that we call 7 keys to closing more deals with NLP. And I think you'll find a lot of value. It's over an hour and in length, and full video. I think you really enjoy the training too. So
what I might do
nlpunlimited.com/thunder. Go ahead.
I'll get you to send that once we jump off in Messenger to me. And what I'll do is when I post the YouTube video, I'll put it in the description when I chuck it in some groups that people will see it in, and that way it'll be there so they can click it and jump in or just dial in. So that'd be great. I mean, thank you for offering a gift. That's amazing. I'm sure people will take you up on that, and I'm sure there'll be a fair bit of interest. I mean, I actually met you through Yulia, who was on a while ago, and she touched on NLP. She was on for a brilliant product that she's got, but she touched on it, and she introduced me and said, because I spoke to her about it afterwards. I said, this is amazing. And she recommended you to come on and talk to the viewers and the listeners more about it. And I'm pretty sure once people see it, it just tickles, the stuff that we've been talking about, coming out of your purpose, all this sort of stuff. You hear it around, but with NLP, people are always talking about, I want to change this. I've got some blocks, but they just don't know. Where's the solutions? Well, NLP's got the solutions. The solutions are there. You can actually make real change and really, create more productive habits and be the best version of yourself. So it's been fantastic to have you on. I'll get you to send those through, and I'll get them out. I'll put it in the description of the YouTube video. And been an absolute pleasure, John. I'll love to catch up with you down the track. And just keep going out there, inspiring people, helping people be the best that they can be. And I'm sure that's what gets you up in the morning is the fact that you're out there making a difference. So good on you. And I really appreciate people like yourself out there doing good service to people and helping other people, not just in real estate, like what this channel is, but just in general in life. So congratulations, and thank you for your time. And as I always say, I'll no, I won't go to the graphics because YouTube will flag me. As I always say, because of John Ryan, you guys have been thunderstruck. All right, guys. Thanks again. Thanks, John. See you later.
Thank you, Graham. Been a pleasure.